Let's jump right into this explainer and unpack a truly pivotal moment in 20th century European history, the Athens Polytechnic Uprising and the architecture of revolt. We're going to be exploring its deeply fractured internal factions, its tragic human cost, and its profound international legacy. You see, this isn't just a story about a student protest. It's honestly a masterclass in how political myths are born and how grassroots movements can literally topple governments. Let's get started. Just picture the sheer tension in the early hours of November 17, 1973. The transitional government of the Greek military junta, often called the regime of the colonels, had basically reached a breaking point with a massive, uncontrollable student occupation. In a defining, shocking moment of escalation, they sent a massive AMX-30 military tank crashing straight through the barricaded gates of the National Technical University of Athens. It's literally an image that permanently scarred the nation's political consciousness. But just hours before that steel actually breached the gates, this haunting pirate radio broadcast was echoing across the city. Built from scavenged laboratory equipment, the students' radio station became the beating heart of the resistance. Broadcasters like Maria Dominaki made a desperate, defiant stand, pleading for solidarity from the citizens of Athens against the military junta's impending martial law. Moving into Section 1, 3 Days of Defiance. Escalation to crisis. Let's actually rewind just a few days to see how this localized student strike rapidly turned into a full-blown national crisis. So what started on November 14 with the students simply demanding bread, education, liberty snowballed with astonishing speed. The students called themselves the Free Besieged, which is a poetic nod to an old Greek poem about an Ottoman siege. By November 15, that pirate radio was up and thousands of ordinary citizens, including construction workers and farmers from Megara, just poured in to support them. By the 16th, central roads were closed, fires erupted, and Molotov cocktails were being thrown at neighboring ministries. The state's response culminated on November 17 with the reimposition of martial law and that infamous tank breach. That brings us to Section 2, Factions Within, Ideological Friction. Because the reality inside those university walls, it was intensely fractured. It was definitely not a unified front. We're looking at a pretty stark contrast here. On one side, you had spontaneous, newly formed anarchist groups, led by figures like Christos Constantinidis and Sylvia Papadopoulou, who were pushing for total societal revolution, sexual liberation, and the complete dismantling of the state. On the flip side, the traditional pro-Soviet communist youth groups initially viewed the uprising as an irresponsible and hasty move. When the uprising actually gained traction, the communists tried to seize control. They set up physical patrols to suppress the anarchists' intersectional messaging and literally kicked them out of the buildings to take the reins. It was basically a revolution divided within itself. Now for Section 3, Casualties, Myths, and Controversies. The brutal military crackdown inevitably led to tragedy, but the aftermath quickly became a real battleground of political myths, wild exaggerations, and honestly, outright denialism. After the dictatorship fell, rumors ran completely rampant. Some people claimed up to 500 had been killed, many secretly buried, and dozens crushed behind the university gates. But decades of really rigorous, systematic research by the National Hellenic Research Foundation in 2004 eventually confirmed the hard data. The actual number? Exactly 24 civilians died outside the campus, caught in the crossfire, or shot by officers. Officially, no students were killed inside the campus itself. Now, this massive discrepancy in casualties leads us to a fascinating and frankly somewhat bizarre historical mystery that actually fueled right-wing denialism of the entire tragedy. And it all centers around one question. Who was Elenia? So, around the first anniversary of the uprising, a sketch of a beautiful, supposedly martyred student named Elenia went incredibly viral. It deeply moved the Greek nation. There was just one massive problem. Elenia didn't exist. The sketch was actually exposed as a trace of Nancy Cridland, who was a New Zealand model featured in a Breck shampoo magazine advertisement. No way, right? The creator of the hoax was sentenced to 8 months in prison, but the damage was already done. This tangible fraud gave dictatorship apologists massive ammunition to create a counter-narrative, allowing them to dismiss the real, tragic deaths of those 24 civilians as a complete myth. Moving on to Section 4, Legacy of the Uprising, Catalyst for Change. Stepping back from the immediate aftermath and all those swirling rumors, we really need to look at how this event permanently altered the DNA of European politics and society. This uprising was a massive catalyst. First off, it completely fractured the left, causing a permanent rift between radicalized Greek youth and the traditional Communist Party, who the youth felt had tried to stifle their true revolution. Second, it mainstreamed anarchist thought in Greece, establishing a culture of anti-authoritarianism that persists to this very day. Third, it tragically birthed the 17N, or 17 November, terror group, named it directly after the day the tank crashed the gates. Their chief hitman even titled his memoir, I Was Born November 17th. Ultimately, though, the instability caused by the uprising brought about the total collapse of the military junta in the summer of 1974. Here we are at Section 5, Global Solidarity, Anti-Fascist Movement, because the impact wasn't just domestic. The fall of the Greek junta totally transformed Athens from a city under military rule into a vibrant beacon for international democratic transitions. This brilliantly illustrates how a local uprising's momentum can go completely global. Fast forward to November 1975, exactly 2 years after the Polytechnic uprising, a newly free Athens became the host city for the International Conference of Solidarity with the Chilean People. Global networks, from religious groups to leftists, converged on Athens to denounce Augusto Pinochet's regime in Chile. Why Athens? Because it was purposefully chosen as the ultimate symbol that a transition to democracy was actually possible. Almost at the end now with Section 6, Popular Movements, Broader Study. Today, historians and political scientists don't just look at the Polytechnic uprising as a one-off historical event. They draw direct lines between this 1973 grassroots uprising and how we analyze modern populism and revolts today. When we see those free besieged students organically uniting with construction workers and farmers in Athens, we are looking at the raw mechanics of populism. Modern researchers like Zygmunt de Barros and Lago explore these exact same dynamics when analyzing movements like the Yellow Vests in France. It's all about ordinary people taking spontaneous, sometimes really chaotic action against established elites. Understanding the anatomy of the Athens uprising, the factions, the spontaneous organization, the clash with the state, is absolutely crucial to understanding the mechanics of democracy and protest itself. And that leaves us with this final, really vital question. We've seen how a literal shampoo advertisement was weaponized to erase the memory of 24 real people who lost their lives. So as we navigate our own modern political movements, from grassroots protests to global solidarity campaigns, how can we separate the factual sacrifices of the people from the convenient myths that surround them? Definitely something to think about the next time you see a viral political image. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning what you see.